An illegal alien with a long rap sheet, deported twice, including once under the Biden administration, now charged with first-degree attempted murder after stabbing an innocent victim on a Charlotte train Friday night. It is the exact same train line where a career felon with at least 14 prior arrests was out on cashless bail before he allegedly stabbed Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska to death as she returned home from work. Border czar Tom Homan joining us now. Good morning, Tom. I want to get right to this horrific attack in Charlotte. Now, Charlotte's mayor, who has opposed your efforts to crack down with ICE there, put this statement out about this tragedy, saying there are several aspects of public safety that are outside of the city's jurisdiction, including immigration policy and enforcement, but we will continue to focus on public safety and ensuring a safe and vibrant community. What's your reaction, sir?
I say prove it. Prove it. Let your local law enforcement and your state law, let the state law enforcement, mostly her local law enforcement, let them walk side by side with ICE and Border Patrol as they focus on criminal aliens in her city. I mean, as a mayor, her number one responsibility is protection of her communities and to lower the crime. President Trump, under President Trump's leadership, we've already dropped crime in a lot of these major cities because of the actions of ICE out there. We're concentrating on the worst of the worst. So, put your actions where your words are. Put your officers out there shoulder to shoulder. We're not asking them to be immigration officers. We're asking them to help us locate and remove illegal aliens who are public safety threats in our city.
And, Tom, we have talked over the course of the years about known gotaways. This illegal alien criminal, Oscar Solarzano, apparently deported twice, came back a third time as a gotaway with more than 2 million known gotaways in the country. This is exactly the sort of thing we worried about. And it's remarkable. Solarzano had a prior conviction for robbery and then additional arrests for aggravated battery here in the U.S., and yet he's here. How imperative is it now that your men and women of ICE and Border Patrol continue to try and find not only the ones we know about, but the known gotaways that pose this type of threat?
Well, thank God President Trump's in the Oval Office, because when we came in, we knew there's over 600,000 illegal aliens with a criminal record walking the streets of this country. And you're right, Griff, over 2 million known gotaways. These are more than 2 million people who crossed the border under Joe Biden and got away. They weren't fingerprinted. They weren't vetted. They paid more to get away. They didn't just turn themselves in the Border Patrol, get a free airline ticket to a city and get a free hotel room and free medical care. They paid more to get away. And why is that? Because they didn't want to be fingerprinted. They didn't want to be invited because they're gang members. They're criminal aliens. Could be from a terrorist-sponsored country. So over 2 million. So this is what President Trump's committed to. We're working with ICE and DOJ to locate every one of these criminals and remove them from this country. That would not have happened if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris was president. President Trump's a game changer, and like I said before, over a couple 100,000 criminal aliens have already been removed, and we're just getting started.
Tom, some of the most innocent victims of the Biden border crisis are the unaccompanied children. The some 300,000 that were either lost by the Biden administration or were placed with unvetted sponsors. You have an update on this administration's effort to try and rescue those children. What can you tell us?
Over 500,000 children were smuggled in this country under Joe Biden. They released them to unvetted sponsors. They lost track of 300,000. President Trump committed on day one that we will do everything we can to find every one of these children. Because we know many are in sex trafficking, many are in forced labor, many are being abused. I look at the numbers every day. On Friday, I looked at the numbers. There's over 62,000 children found by the Trump administration. Children that weren't even being looked for under the Biden administration. President Trump saved over 62,000 children's lives. Some of these children were in sex trafficking, we found them. Some were in forced labor. Some were being mistreated. I can't even discuss some of the mistreatment we found out about. President Trump, again, proves why he's the greatest president in my lifetime. Over 62,000 children rescued by President Trump. Again, children that were ignored and weren't being looked for under President Biden.
62,000, that is a news-breaking number right there. I know you continue. And, you know, when we talk about this, Tom, and you and I have talked off camera about this, some of the most painful experiences I had on the border was when these smugglers, these cartels would just drop children 3, 4, 5 years old on the other side of the border with nothing other than a name and a phone number written on a piece of paper stuck to these unaccompanied children. Here's a flashback of one of those moments down in Mission, Texas in March of 2023. We've just rolled up on migrants that have crossed the river and given themselves up. A woman found a young child by himself, the cord around his neck, instructing the border officials to send him to Louisiana. The child will get special attention as they try and figure out who he is. It's just heartbreaking to see that, and this is Texas DPS Sergeant Lupe Casares that had to then try and figure out what to do with this poor child who had no idea where he was or where he would end up. Tom, this is so important.
Well, look, bottom line is, under Joe Biden, the Democrats want to attack President Trump every day. Every day they're attacking President Trump. They are complicit. For 4 years this has happened. Sex trafficking, historic highs. Children crossing the border, historic highs. Migrant deaths crossing the border, historic highs. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl under Joe Biden because of that open border. Like or love President Trump, you got to admit, this man has shown every day he's saving America. Because of his actions on the border, we have the most secure border in history of this nation. Secure border ever. Lowest number of crossings in history. And you know, to find 64,000 missing children. 0 releases in 7 months. Because of that secure border, less fentanyl is coming across to kill Americans, less migrants are dying making that journey. President Trump saving America one day at a time, and I'm just proud to be a part of his administration.
62,000 rescued children, proving that a secure border is actually a safer border. Border czar Tom Homan, thank you for taking time.
All right. You got it. Thanks for having me.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.